Hello, hello, hello. It's Stephanie here, and welcome aboard episode 68 of the Rent to Rent Success podcast. And today's episode is epic. I know that you love hearing real life stories and about how real people are getting started and doing it while juggling work and family. And today's is mind blowing. I know you're going to get lots of value. I'm so excited to welcome Dan Anson Hart. Dan has built a rent-to-rent portfolio of 9 HMOs, that's 45 units, in 18 months while in full-time employment and with a young family. So it's no mean feat, and it's across the coronavirus lockdown. He's now given notice into his day job too, so we'll be hearing about the highs and lows of all that. Not only that, he's got 3 developments that are currently in the pipeline consisting of 21 units, and he's doing those with a business partner. He's got lots more exciting plans for the future, with plans to outsource his rent-to-rent portfolio. So welcome to the show. Welcome
Thank you.
to the show, Dan
You.
Anson Hart. Great to have you with us, and we're really looking forward to hearing all about how you got started and all the highs and lows along the way. So to kick us off, Dan, I'd love to know just a little bit about you.
Thank you. Well, you've just really scared me with that intro. Like, crikey, is that what I've got going on? No, a little bit about me. Thank you very much for having me as well, Stephanie. Again, Dan, based down in Cornwall. Previously, I studied at university to be a secondary PE teacher. So I went and originally started teaching, essentially. Very quickly realised that it wasn't really something I wanted to be doing. So 4 or 5 years after, just realising, trying to work out my next steps, I felt and found that I was going to be getting a lot more chucked at me for very little reward. So very quickly changed routes. My wife and I then moved back to Cornwall because that was in Dorset. And we just went on a new route. So I started sales, and I'm 6 years into sales, but I've now been in property for 2 years. And I've not looked back really. So got ourselves educated and started taking action really. That was how we've got to where we are today, which is a bit of a whirlwind when you've just given us that amazing introduction. It's like crazy, we've just done all that. Just follows on from one another really. It's just kind of like you look back and think, crikey, is that what we've done? So I need to start doing that a bit more, I think, for sure.
Yeah, totally. So you were a teacher, then went into sales for 6 years, and I'm sure that'll come into what we talk about a bit later, the skills that you learned while you were in sales. And then now you've only been in property for 2 years, and you've already built up 9 HMOs, 45 rooms, plus 3 developments in the pipeline for another 21 units. Wow. So let's rewind and go right back to the beginning. Because we were talking just before we started rolling about most people have negative thoughts maybe about getting started to begin with. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts on getting started and getting started itself.
Yeah, again, it was nothing planned, Stephanie. It was kind of this was one of those moments. My wife and I, we laugh about it today because it literally was a case. We went to a family wedding, normal family day out sort of thing, and it was at that point where the groom, his best man was giving a speech, and his best man just subtly chucked in the speech where he's had a great year this year. He's bought 5 properties, and it was at that point I thought, how has this guy bought 5? He was a builder. So no disrespect to builders, but I expected to buy 5 properties. You've got to be a multi-millionaire, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, how has he done that? Now that is interesting. So you do the courteous stalking on social media.
Yeah.
I just found out that he got himself on a few property courses. And this particular property course had a podcast. So my day job, my sales job was I work for an insulation manufacturer. So I work with architects, building control, developers, house builders merchants. So I've got a quite nice network there. But essentially, I do a lot of traveling living in Cornwall. So I was averaging probably 1,000 miles a week. So I was in the car a lot. Plenty of time to listen to podcasts and audiobooks. So I just educated myself. So if you imagine, I'm in the car a good 3-4 hours a day. And at all those times, I was just listening to podcasts and audiobooks. I didn't listen to the radio for a good couple of years, basically. And it was at that point I just learned so much, and I found this plethora of information out there and opportunities within property, which I just didn't have a clue existed, and how many creative ways you can obtain property, really. So it was at that point I thought, wow, there is something else out there, and it is obtainable. I just now need to work out what I need to do to take those first steps, really. So yeah, it all came from that wedding, and we always laugh at just saying, well, what if we didn't go to that wedding? Would we be here? And I honestly feel that we would somehow have found the route, but it would have probably just taken us that bit longer.
Yeah. So tell us the next step then, because a lot of people listen to podcasts. I love podcasts as well. But what was it that actually made you take action?
It's just that with me, I've got a young family. We've got 2 young boys, 4 and 2, and we've literally just, well, we've not just found out, but we've just announced we're having a third. So again, like, add that to the mix. So we've got a third on the way in July, which is exciting. But yeah, I'm just staying away so much with my day job. Like, I'm away probably I was pre-COVID away at least 1-2 times a week, or 2 nights a week, should I say? And it was when you get home and the boys turn around and say, oh, Daddy, are you going away again? It's just, I just hated it. And it wasn't what I wanted long term. So my wife was teaching as well, primary teacher. And with the boys, the aim was for her only to go back to part-time. But I didn't want her working part-time either, because it was just so draining. And with me being away, it's a lot on her. So I just wanted to get the life we wanted. So it was at that point, my why was cemented into me. I think that is the key, from what it is what do you want and why do you want it? And if you want it bad enough, you will find any way of making it happen. Like, if someone came to you with a gun at your head and told you need to do something to stop this, you're going to do it. And it was kind of like that mentality in my head that I don't want to be doing these miles. I don't want to be staying away and missing this valuable time with my family. So I will make this happen. And I think that was what made me do it, really, essentially. And to answer your question, what was the next step? It was a case of obviously listening, educating as much as I can, trying to network. So I looked up what was locally to me, what network events were locally to me. I started going to those networking events. Down by me, it's called PIG, so the Professional Investment Group. It was only a few meets that I went to that I then started hosting it.
So, how did that happen?
Literally, I went to, I know, tell me about it. I went to one in Cornwall event down in Truro as a guest, and then I went to the Plymouth one, which is out. So we've got Pig Plymouth, Pig Cornwall. So I went to the Plymouth event, and it was the host there, Anglos, and we just kind of hit it off, really. I literally spoke to him probably a couple of times, and it was he just rang me up one afternoon, just said, Dan, do you mind if I have a chat? So go for it, Anglos. How can I help? I was quite in awe. Like, Anglos, who's a massive, huge respect for Anglos. He's got multiple developments, multi-million-pound portfolio, and he's hosting pigs. So I saw him as quite a massive figure, far, far away from where I am. And he just said, Dan, I think you'd be a great person to possibly hook up with and team up with and potentially take Pig Cornwall on. I was like, okay. And I'm just one of those people like, I'll just say yes and figure it out later. I was like, I've got no property experience, got no property knowledge, but I'm confident standing in front of people with my teaching background and stuff. So I thought, you know what? If he's going to create the content, all I've got to do is stand at the front and deliver it. I'd be silly not to take this on. I'd be going to these events anyway, so I might as well be stood at the front rather than at the back. So yeah, I just did it, and it's something that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and I've not looked back since. So yeah, go to networking. I don't necessarily become the host of one, but get out there and network. I think that's the key, because I've met so many local people that have been so inspiring, and seeing people do it locally to you is another thing, because being in the southwest, you think, oh, prices are so extortionate, I need to go and do this up in the north. Well, I wanted to be involved. I wanted to be hands-on and learn, and because I thoroughly enjoy it. So I thought, I could get probably more for my money up north, but it's miles away. It's a lot more stress, and everyone around me were doing it locally. So I thought, well, if they can do it, why can't I? So it was a case of, get yourself networking, educate yourself, and build that network locally, and that massively helped me start.
Yeah, no, it's so important. I first got started in property through the networking events, and I was just mind blown by what people were doing. But I didn't get asked to be the host, so kudos to you for getting asked to be the host. And let's talk about, because we also talked about, you didn't really think rent to rent was for you. So tell us a little bit about what your thoughts were about rent to rent initially, and how that changed.
Yeah, no, that's spot on, Stephanie. Essentially, I very quickly found out that obviously I haven't got a big wad of cash to go buy a load of properties. So I need to use my time, but I'm doing miles. I haven't got time, so I needed to find a way of getting cash flow to get me time, so I could get out my day job. So essentially, I worked out what I need to do. What is our family income needing to be to live the life we're living now? So we got there. I was like, right, now I need to find a cash flow strategy that I don't need a lot of cash to start, to get my ball rolling. So for me, in my head, it was sourcing. I actually went down the sourcing route to start up. So I set myself up a compliant sourcer. You've got got myself on a mentor who was a sourcer, and basically got it all set up. And I started direct to vendor marketing, so email, letters. I hired a VA. They were scraping off Rightmove for me, sending me details. I was then writing up, printing off the letters, sending the literally did it all. I was getting loads of callbacks, but the callbacks weren't necessarily motivated. There were properties on the sale, and someone had given them a nice letter, and they thought I'd give them a call. So they were getting I wasn't getting much traction from the letters. I was getting a lot of callbacks, which were taking a lot of time. But then I realised, well, look, I then actually got a couple of deals on my lap, and I thought, right, well, now I've got the deals, I've got to find it. It was just time consuming. Very quickly, I found I needed more and more time to make this a real solid business. And once I've got one deal sold, I'm going to need to do this again. So it's just continuous. So I thought, well, there must be another way. But I wasn't sold on rent to rent. I thought, why the hell would anyone do rent to rent? Why am I going to pay a landlord to manage his property? Like, oh, it doesn't work. Why am I going to invest money in his property? So yeah, it wasn't until I went to one of the pig events, and it was Francis Dolly who was presenting. And I just clicked really with Francis. I just thought he was my kind of humour, dry humour, and he's approachable. And yeah, it just sold me on the rent to rent strategy really. So cut the story short, I got myself educated and just took the action from the course that I went on.
Yeah, so you went on the course in 2019, I think it was, you said.
Yeah, it was literally last weekend, 2 years ago last weekend. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're in, oh my gosh.
So it's February, last weekend of Feb.
Last weekend of February. Okay. And you went on the course. Well, what happened next?
Yeah, well, initially, in theory, you just go on your own. But I knew I needed to get my wife Jodie on board because I'm trying to sell her this dream, and she's not going to believe it as much from me. I said, so you get yourself, you pay for yourself, and then you pay, I think it's like 50% more, and you can take a partner, a business partner. So I said, look, I need you to come with me. I need you to get your head around this because this is what we're doing for us. So I treated her to a date weekend in Bristol. Dinner lunch was included. So we went on the course, just learned, absorbed, and then literally on the drive home, we came up with a company name. That night, I didn't go to bed. I was getting logos created, getting the website ready. Like I was just buzzing, and just knew that I had to take action and get on with it. So yeah, literally straight from the course, actioned everything we were advised and taught, just started our direct to vendor marketing campaign, and it just went from there really.
Wow, I love it because so many people, myself included, sometimes you can go on a course and then never do anything with it. But you just, I think it's when you've got that sharp focus of why you're doing it, you want to get out of your job, you want to put Jodie out of her job so that you can spend more time together as a family and, do other things apart from driving up and down the motorway. So, how did you get your first deal? Tell us about how the first deal happened. And
so literally, as I said to you, we started the marketing, sent out over the space. So it was so frustrating because I was waiting for the website to be launched. So I didn't want to just go and pepper-mill all these, or scattergun approach all these letters where I didn't have a website, because I'm referring to us as a big, good corporate company, a trusted professional, but there was no website, so I had to get that website. So we had to wait a month for that tool to be ready, because I was getting that done by a VA and translating it via Skype and stuff like that. So I had to frustratingly wait. And so we didn't send our first letters until April. So it took March to get the website stuff. So April, we sent the first batch of letters. In short, over the space of April, May, June, we sent about 250 letters to landlords on the HMO register in our area, which is Cornwall. And we were focusing just in Falmouth and Penryn, which are where the student markets are for us. So yeah, targeted those, and I got 4 responses from those 250 letters. 5 responses, apologies, 5 responses. I screwed up the first one. I went to the house. It was a 7-bed. If I'm honest, in hindsight, I'm so pleased I did. But at the time, you're just so eager. You almost are desperate to get something for all your efforts, all of your time. And it was a big 7-bed property. And I screwed it up myself. There's no one to blame other than myself. Basically, I got all excited. I got all the hype on social media. I agreed a price with the landlady, and I posted about it on my open page. It was on my open Facebook group, and she saw it again so naively. So Jodie's there slapping around. She said, "What are you doing, you muppet?" But and she rang me up. She goes, Dan, I've just obviously got no issue at all, but I just didn't want it to be too public because my current agents. So she was absolutely brilliant with it. But obviously, straight away, I lose that credibility and I lose that trust. And then that was just one reason that one fell out of bed. But her solicitor wasn't a property specialist solicitor. So when he started finding out, he was questioning, why would they put money into your property? So he was obviously, with me doing that mess up on social media, her sister being in her ear as well, saying, look, I don't think this sounds right. That one fell out of bed. But I'm so pleased it did now, because if I was making £600 profit or £700 profit on a 7-bed, which I would have been at the time, I'd have been so chuffed to have got it at the time. But on hindsight, it would have been not worth it. So yeah, I learned a lot from that. Like, why was I posting on social? I didn't need to be. It was just me trying to be socially recognized or give myself some credibility. It didn't need to be. It's just think why I'm doing this. Well, I'm doing this for myself and my family. I don't need to be doing all that. So very quickly, I learned a lot of lessons hard and fast. So the other callbacks, I took the learnings into action, and one callback was for a landlord who lived in Somerset, property in Falmouth, which is Cornwall, so good few hours. They are ex-teachers. So I thought, right, I need to make the effort here. I went to their house. And I visited them. I said, look, I want you just to meet me, to show I'm a real person and I'm a trustworthy guy. Anyway, cut long story short, they were happy with the far price, they were happy with the figures, they wanted to go with us. But it was too late in the year, and their agents had already committed to the next year of students, so they couldn't get out at the time. So they said, look, Dan, we'll come back to you in a year's time. How's that sound? So no problem at all. So that was 2 I missed out on, and I was like, oh my God. But the next 2 I got, I converted. So the next was a portfolio landlord. And we, cut long story short, we took 2 of his properties, one as a rent-to-rent and one as a purchase lease option. And the other we converted as a purchase lease option. So we took them all on at the same time. So 3 deals, generally staggered them within 2 weeks of each other. So yeah, eventually we got our bus that came in 3 at the same time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much in there. Well, first of all, it's great to actually get 5 responses from 250 letters. That's actually a really good response rate. And there's a mixture there about in social media, because obviously we want to be posting on social media in one sense, but not anything that your landlords might be upset about on
closed groups with and I always check that none of my landlords are in any of the groups or anything like that before I do anything. So I've learned my lesson there.
Yeah, and because social media can be powerful as well, because that's how a lot of people find you and see that you're credible, see that you're involved, see that they want to invest with you. As the same, like you were saying about actual networking. And then you also talked about the deal and the purchase lease option. So let's talk first of all. Well, let's do it in 2 stages. So one of the things that people really worry about, Dan, on their first property or on any rent-to-rent property, when they're sitting at home thinking, oh yeah, I would quite like to do rent-to-rent, but I don't want to spend a lot of money on somebody else's property. So I always like to ask people, well, how much did you have to invest? Was it a lot or a little, or how did it work?
Yeah, no, good question. What we did is if I talk you through our first deal, our first deal was a 5-bed HMO. It was a really run-down, tired student property. So we're generally targeting student properties, student landlords with tired properties that they're struggling to let. So it's a tough market. They're struggling to let. Never had this issue before. Well, look, bring it over to us. We'll work with you, refurbish it, and we'll let it to professionals and guarantee you a rent. So there's a pain there. So how we negotiate, I wrote down the figures here in preparation for this. So this first property, we needed £7,500 refurb. We negotiate with the landlord. We'll pay half and they pay half. We'll project manage it all. So he put up half of it and we put up the other half, but we managed the whole process. So we put new kitchens in, and literally just new flooring and decoration throughout, essentially, and then obviously furniture too. So how much we pay? We half of that, so what's that? £3,750 we invested into that. That property is a 5-bed. It brings us in each month £2,600. We pay the landlord £1,200. We pay bills, which is about £550. So our profit on that property is £850 a month. So we made that back very, very quickly. So it was just an initial 3,750. But our general rule is that profit In fact, I was worst casing that at £750 a month. So
Yeah.
I'm making more than I anticipated. But my business partner James now, he's like, God, you always work worst case, but as long as I can live with worst case, I'm happy. So it can only be better. So yeah, for me, I budgeted £750 a month. So I worked that out. So I times that by 6, and that would be the minimum. I kind of like, well, seven is what I work to. 6 or 7 months is the,
Yeah.
as long as I get my money back by that time, I'm happy to proceed and invest that amount. But yeah, no, that was a good example, good deal.
I love that, because it really can be a phenomenal deal for a landlord as well, because they've been struggling with their property. They've not been achieving the returns that they wanted to achieve. Now it's done up to a high standard. And people forget how important that is, not for every single landlord, but for most of the landlords that we work with, or that we want to work with. They do actually take a pride in, knowing that they're renting out good properties, and they would feel a little bit embarrassed if, when the properties are run down or they're not being looked after properly, especially like the remote landlords, like you say, your landlords, they live further away and they can't be in there themselves. So they really want to know that it's been looked after. And I just got my calculator out quickly here, Dan, and I said that's 10,200 a year, which is phenomenal. And on that very first property, in terms of, let's call it cash flow, profit, what you've got left after you've paid all the bills, etc., and the rent. And over a 5-year period, most of our contracts are 5 years. That's 50,000 pounds. But yeah, so that's a great first deal. And I think 3,750. I think most people, if they are creative and think about it and networking, most of us who are working and live in the UK can raise that kind of money to do a deal that's going to make.
I'm no financial advisor, and I'd never recommend any kind of guidance like that. But you could put that on a credit card, Stephanie.
Yes.
You can put that on a credit card and pay it back. 0% finance. That's not a problem. Why? Yeah.
Exactly. It's a small amount of money, and I think it's well worth people thinking about what's for them. It's obviously not for everybody. And then you've got to be able to put the time in, as you identified earlier, to manage the property. So we talked about getting the first deal, and you used the landlord letters. We talked about the refurbishment, and yours was 3,750, and then you're making 850 a month. What would you say on your very first one was the biggest mistake? Oh, I suppose you've given us.
Well, with the refurb, you mean?
Yeah.
You mean referring to? Yeah. To be fair, I wouldn't say we had I don't feel I had a big mistake on that first one. I think when we came to number 5 or 6, I think it was 5. Property number 5 is probably when we had the biggest mistake, but it only became a mistake from what we'd done all the others. So basically, we'd used the same refurbishment team, the same building team throughout all of our refurbs initially. And I think they just got a bit too comfortable, and we got a bit too comfortable. I think that's how it is. So I think maybe my biggest mistake was I was very thorough on my first 2 projects.
Yeah.
Because then we got familiar with each other. We kind of knew what was happening. We kind of just trusted one another. The standards started to slip and the quality started to slip, I feel, in the relationship. So when I was asked them, I said, guys, you need to come back, because this isn't as good as it was. They weren't as happy and as easy to do that. And one thing I'd learned is, because we got that trust, I was paying them for the work before they had done it in some instances or finished. So property number 5, I'd actually paid them to the completion, but there was still a few small jobs that hadn't been done, but they'd had their money. They weren't as motivated anymore. In cut long story short, it took them 6 months with me nagging them continually, and then potentially saying, look, if you don't get this done now, guys, I can't be any more patient. I'm going to have to put a review on or something. I don't want to be doing this, but I need this work done. You pay. Anyway, they did do the work that they promised and eventually. But yeah, that's probably my biggest mistake, is getting too comfortable and not being consistent with the thoroughness initially, with the scope of works and things for each property.
Yeah, it's something that property investors always talk about: the builders, the contractors, the relationships. And it sounds like you had a great relationship, but yeah, sometimes once you paid, there's no leverage. Yeah. And you also mentioned that on your very first deal, well, the first 2 properties, the second one was a purchase lease option as well, which I know people would be interested in, because tell us what a purchase lease option is.
So purchase lease option was essentially, well, how do we identify it for a start? This landlord was, we started talking about the opportunity of guaranteeing his rent for 4 to 5 years, and he was like, okay, that sounds good. He said, well, I'm looking to sell maybe in the next 12 months. I said, well, I can't get into this contract with you if you're looking to sell, because that my tenants are going to, this whole model, I'm going to be investing money, like, it just doesn't work. So I said, well, why are you selling? And he just said, well, I just thought I'd put some money into like a holiday let instead of a HMO just to diversify. I said, well, look, how about I buy this property from you at the end of our term of contract? And he was like, okay, that makes sense. So I will guarantee you this amount a month. So I'll guarantee you, say, £1,500 a month, for argument's sake, for the next 4 years. And in 4 years' time, I will purchase the property from you from the agreed price we agreed today. He was like, well, yeah, okay, that sounds brilliant. So he's got a guaranteed rent, and then at the end, he's got a guaranteed sale. So that's essentially a purchase lease options. But the difference is, our rent-to-rent properties, we take care of all bills up to £100. So all maintenance, any things like that. Like we had a broken latch on a window, it came to about £30 to supply and fit a new one. We paid that. Landlord doesn't have a clue. But as soon as there's a maintenance issue over £100, we then invoice the landlord for that, which they're happy with. It's all in the contract. However, on a purchase lease option, that isn't the case. So the purchase lease option is more like a commercial lease, whereby we are in charge of the whole building. Because essentially, you look at it as you've bought the building, but you just haven't paid for it yet. That's probably an easy way to get it around your head. So where the pain in this is now, I've got an example in the last couple of weeks. We've had an issue with the boiler in one of our purchase lease option properties, which is actually HMO number 3, which I took on at the start. But unforeseen, they've had no gas now in the property for a week and a half, bless them. No hot water, no heating, because there's been an issue with the boiler, and then we've had to change the servicing. Oh, it's been nuts. Can't do anything more I'm doing. The tenants are amazing. They really appreciate everything we've done to help. But it's just one of those things. But what I'm getting at here is we've had to pay for all of this. So I've got a bill coming for me for about 6 call outs, and Wales and West utilities changing. Oh, it's going to be good over £1,000, but that's on me. That's just the risk that I've had to take. But we've agreed a price to pay in 4 years' time, which again, it's a hedge essentially. You hear hedge funds, that you're like, that's essentially what it is. You're taking your chances. We're going to promise you that we're going to rent it for this period of time. If we don't have to buy it, it's an option to buy. So it's just essentially a long-term lease.
And it's wonderful, because it means that you get to buy property at the beginning of, or a person would get to buy property at the beginning of their journey when maybe they haven't got a big deposit to start off with. And also you've got the leverage of time, that it's the likelihood is that the property will have gone up in value somewhat over the 5-year period, when then you can seek the finance to do whatever you're doing. And you've got flexibility, because you could use your cash flow. I'm sure you're using the cash flow on other developments, but you could use the cash flow, towards the
deposit. Exactly, definitely. That's the idea. So your cash flow is going to build up your pot to buy it longer term. So it's and the appreciation with capital growth. So it just makes that entry level a bit more approachable and accessible, I suppose.
Yeah, and also one of the hard things sometimes is just finding the deals. And you've already found this deal. You know that the property works because you've been working it, and it just gives both sides, both you and the property owner, so much clarity and simplicity. I'm going to rent it, I'm going to buy it, and then
with this particular property, I've literally got off the phone to them before our call, and they just, because they're an older couple, they're lovely, but they were like, I mentioned to them previously, because they asked for an update. I said, oh yeah, we've had to change the tumble dryer recently, and the fridge. So, do we need to pay for that? I was like, no, that's part of our lease. Like, that's something we cover. She goes, it's just like having our own little Cornish pixies down there. So again, it's nice feedback, and it's nice to work with people like that.
Oh my gosh, I'm just picturing you now as Cornish pixie.
That's it. With the grazer, it's grey. It's pixie dust.
Pixie dust. Perfect. So you also mentioned in your intro that you're systemizing. That's one of your things that you're doing this year. So I'd love to hear more about that.
I was hoping you'd tell me more. It's very early stages. It's just with everything we've got going on, and the number of properties we've got, and tenants. So the admin's obviously getting bigger and bigger and more intensive now, and it's mainly all on me, to be fair. So I just need to work out a better way to systemize the business, so I can get someone else in to take over this side for me. So yeah, I'm just looking at ways that we can do that, really. So whether that be just writing up systems and processes that I'm going through every single day, the tenant onboarding, I've gone through meticulously at what we're doing at every single stage. I've video recorded me doing it, so I've got a video of me actually using the CRM system that we use, which at the minute is GoTenant, and then how we kind of implement that, what we have to do every step by step. So yeah, it's just trying to make a step-by-step process on everything I'm doing, so that I can one day get someone in and say, look, tenants coming on board, follow this system, this is how we onboard them.
No, that sounds amazing. That's exactly the place that I would suggest to start with. And you're a lot further forward than a lot of people are when they start. And how we started with it was I onboarded the first 9 tenants. It was a 5-bed and a 4-bed. And then I went through that process that you've just described with Nikki. I went through everything that I did as part of it, the texts that I sent, the messages in Spare Room, how I book it into the calendar, etc. And then she sort of created an overview sort of flow chart, and then we also created a spreadsheet at the time, but you could now use Asana for to move each person along the tenant onboarding flow. And then we took on a VA. She actually is a Brit, but she was living part of the time in this country and part of the time abroad. She was a lovely lady in her 50s. So sort of semi-retired, I was meaning, and just wanting to work a bit part-time. And so that worked out brilliantly. And we stayed with Dawn we got Dawn involved really early, because the great thing about it is that she's just charging for the hours she works.
Yeah.
And so we got Dawn involved really early after the first 2 properties. And she's done all the onboarding ever since then. So at the time, I was still doing the viewings in person and everything. But Dawn would arrange the viewings and then do all the messages on Spare Room. And once they sent in the reservation form, she would do all the tenant onboarding right up until when they moved in. And then I would do that in person. And then later on, we got somebody full-time. And that person then did what Dawn was doing, plus what I was doing in person.
Amazing. So that was quite interesting, because I like, it sounds like you're a visual as well. I'm a visual person, whereby I like the idea of being able to drag someone along the process. That sounds amazing. That's what I want. So you're saying Asana was good for you for that?
Yes, absolutely. So each column obviously is a step along the process. But we can talk more about that.
That was interesting. Yeah, definitely.
I love to talk about that, because once you've got that is just equals such freedom. Because the other great thing about it is you can oversee it all. So say, for example, you've got somebody like with us, Dawn. I used to insist that she has the weekends off. She was okay with working weekends, but I just didn't want her to get her burnt out or fed up. And so say if we wanted to go at the weekends, because in the beginning people could move in any day. Now we're more constrained with when people can move in. But and so if we had somebody, say, for example, moving in at the weekend, I can check on the system and just oversee where everything is and what's been done and what's in place. I haven't got to speak to anybody else in the team. It's just all open for us. So the same way you've got GoTenant, and obviously you would use Asana as your task management, or whatever you choose as your task management. Then you've got those 2 places. Plus we've also got Google Drive as well.
Drive.
And it's just magnificent.
Brilliant. No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Great. Well, let's go on now, because you have not only got this brilliant rent-to-rent business set up, but you've also moved into developments now with a business partner.
Indeed, yes. Again, something else I owe to PIG, really, the networking group I host. So I met James, my now business partner at PIG. And James was in a very similar boat to me, really. When I started property, he generally just kind of started learning himself about, okay, we can make a career out of this. We could get out of the day job like this. So we laughed and joked at the time. We said, you go do your stuff, I'll do my stuff. In a couple of years, we'll just get together. We'll see where we are. I'll race you to freedom, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yes, essentially James has been amazing, and we just kind of had that cohesion really, and I could just see he was a grafter, and it was quite nice to have that kind of little bit of accountability, be it a bit tongue in cheek, but yeah. So he went and got himself. He purchased his properties. He did the BRR, so buy, refurb, refinance. But he's got himself some cottages and flats in Cornwall, and he's holiday lets them, so SAs them. So that's how he got himself. So he got himself financially free at the back end of last year. It was just during probably May, June time when coronavirus was out there in its full force as such, and we were in the first lockdown. And we just got together and thought, you know what, there's going to be some opportunities off the back of this, and we could do much bigger, better things together. Should we start sowing the seeds now? So it was at that point. So during the pandemic, we started thinking, right, let's just start getting our heads together. What do we want? Where do we want to go? Just making sure it works. So cut the story short, where we are today is we have set up a company. So it's called Cornwall Living Property, and we've got a website. You can check it out, www.cornwalllivingproperty.com. Just a bit of info about us. And yeah, we've got 3 developments on the go. So we've got our first one, hopefully, touch wood, that's my desk, is going to complete at the end of March. It's currently, this property is stunning. It's been a guest house, it's been an old school, it's been a hospital, I would say hospital, doctor's surgery. It's in a place called Nevergizzy in Cornwall. And yeah, we're going to be converting it. We just had planning approved to convert it from 7 actually at the minute, but really below par bed sits. They're horrible. But we've had planning to downsize it / upgrade it to 5 lovely 1 and 2 bed apartments. So yeah, we're purchasing that one, and yeah, it should go through. We've got investor finance for that all set up, and we've got a second development. So that's going to be 5 units. Second development is a commercial property in the heart of Truro, so the heart of Cornwall, and it's currently offices. We've just put in planning last week to convert that into 2 residential units, which we are then going to look to HMO. So it'll be a total of 9 rooms in that one. Wow. And we've also got a block of 7 flats currently ready to exchange. We've got 2 tenants with digging their heels in at the minute with regards to vacating during COVID. But yeah, it's a block of 7 flats in Newquay in Cornwall as well that we're waiting on exchanging. So busy times. Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Yeah, I love it. And also one of the things I noticed, I put your development there. Is that right? Cornwalllivingproperty.com.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. So definitely go over there and check out, and people will be able to keep up with your story, Dan, and with the properties and developments, won't they?
Yes, definitely. Yes, that's generally just about a little bit of background about us and the properties that we've already got. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what I noticed about the developments that you've got going on is a lot of them are, or some of them are multi-unit blocks. So you've got like blocks of flats, which I just think is always fantastic. And when so many opportunities in those, and for people listening on the podcast, there's episodes about, I think it's 49 to 52, where I talk about some of the multi-unit blocks that Nikki and I own and why they're so amazing. But what attracts you into that space down the multi-unit block?
I think it's the economies of scale, really. Like James and I have always said that you need doors. You want as many doors as possible, like a HMO. Like it's one front door, but you've got 5, 6, 4, whatever, how many it is, but lettable doors, rooms in there. So a lettable room, I see we class as a unit. So the more units you've got, the more cash flow you're going to have. So economies of scale, we'll buy a block of flats or convert it into a block of flats where you're going to get one big purchase. So you're only paying the one slightly larger, but stamp duty. You're not paying 5 lots of stamp duties. And it's just the economies of scale, really. And just thought, well, we could get to where we want to be a little bit faster. So obviously the idea is being controlled. So it was actually this weekend that we met our investors, and they wanted to see the properties. So we took them around on a tour, just say, look, this is the first one. These are the figures. This is the security we can offer you. And we did a tour around the properties, and they were only going to fund one of them. But at the end of it, they've turned around and they said that we'd be prepared to fund all of them, purchase and development costs. So in short, it's like basically got £1.5 million worth, which is just bonkers when you think about it. And again, I can't take all the credit for that. Like, the relationships initially started with James, but they wanted to come in, meet myself and James, and be seen and sold on Cornwall Living and the developments. And yeah, it's really exciting times.
So did you say that one investor is now funding all 3? Is that
Yeah, so they're a pair. So they're friends. So a pair of investors, a fund. they want to fund all three. We're a bit down the line on the first one. We said that we've got such a good relationship with our broker, and we're so far down the line now, but all the conveyancing's done with bridging in mind and development finance. But if you'd have come to us early, we would 100% do that. But the others, we'd be definitely happy to offer you that opportunity on. So
that is wonderful. And let's dive in, because I know people will be asking themselves, oh, how did you find these investors? This is a question that I get asked quite often. And you mentioned that it was at your PIG networking. Is that right? Or
so I met my business partner at PIG, and actually these investors have come via James, my business partner, to be fair. So relationship started whereby our initial investment had just come from family and friends, and it's kind of been getting the confidence from there. But I speak on behalf of James here, so hopefully it's not out of turn, he'll be fine with it. But James had one of his investors was an external investor, someone he'd known for some time, and he approached him and just simply said, look, I'm doing this on the side. These are the opportunities, these are the returns that we could offer. Would you be happy to come in and get involved? And essentially he said yes. So his initial investment was £50,000, and we got 10% return. And it was at the time James actually went back to him and said, like, would you like to go again, or would you like? And he actually said, no, I need the money actually for a venture that I'm doing on my own side. So James, true to his word, repaid the money, repaid the interest, and thought that was it. But we'd always kept comms between us and a third party as well. So there was 4 of us in total, James and I, that investor who invested with James, and he introduced us to a fourth person, so another investor. So we've been communicating, but the 2 investors have always wanted to keep keeping both of each other in all comms. But it just turns out that, funny enough, it's the one that requested the money back from James. It must have been just testing James out, or just wanting to get confidence, because he's taken his £50,000 plus his £5,000 interest, and he's now come back and offered us £600,000. Well, on this one project already. That is, it's just trust and building that trust from day one. So start small. It's just, I've just got myself in an amazing position where I've got a great business partner and built the credibility, and I find myself at my first real amount of loan agreement will be of those sort of figures, but it's come from James doing the hard work for us in this instance. So kudos to him. But he's built up that respect, that rapport. He's then introduced them to me, and obviously if James is introduced them to me, I've already got that kind of trust there. But they then wanted to meet me at the weekend, so it's kind of like a first date, I suppose, job interview. However you want to see it.
No,
So,
that's a great story, because what it flags up is it's the personal relationships really that made this work. Definitely. So first of all, it was you networking at PIG and just not minding your own business, connecting with people. Then you were asked to host it. Then you were there hosting it, and that through being engaged with that group, you met James, and then James had investors, and it went on from there. So it's all personal relationships, and when you get to show people who you are rather than just tell them, because over those longer term relationships, you get to demonstrate who you are, what your values are, how you do business, and then people can refer you to their friends because they've got full confidence.
I've only had to market, Stephanie, on that first initial occasion. The rest of my portfolio has just come off referrals. So if I quickly run you through, just for the interest of listeners of things. So obviously, as I told you, the first 3 deals came from my marketing, my letters to landlords.
Yeah.
Deal number 4, I was selling furniture on the refurb of deal number 3, and a landlord came and bought it from me on Facebook Marketplace. That landlord had a friend in the area who was a landlord who was struggling to let his property. So it was a referral. He said, I've just gone and bought this furniture from this letting agent, but he's interested in meeting you. So cut long story short, deal number 4 came from a Facebook marketplace.
Yeah.
Deal number 5, it was from me hosting. I was presenting at PIG at my own event, and one of the audience had a family friend who had a HMO that he was struggling to let. Cut long story short, introduced me. We took on that. Number 6 came from, I sent all my existing landlords out a Christmas well done, thank you for your business sort of thing. If you've got any people you could refer us to, we'll offer a referral fee. Cut long story short, they referred us to a friend. We converted that one, so that was number 6. And then I did send another batch of letters out. That was number 7. Number 8 has come from Facebook, just from a family friend in another area. So number 8 is actually in Plymouth, but we've kind of outsourced that one. And then number 9 is that initial couple that were in Somerset that I went to visit. They've come back to me 18 months later and said, Dan, we're finally in a position we could proceed. So I've only had to market once on the letters. The other one I did a quick scattergun letter mail out. So yeah, I suppose twice. I've mailed out twice throughout that time, and we're now on 9. So
wow, that's phenomenal. Although one bit of advice, I would keep still sending the letters out. Maybe you don't
want I don't want any more.
You don't want any more.
I
Oh,
don't
you're
want any more.
developments. Yeah, you're too busy with developments. Okay, well, if you did want more, then
Yes.
good to occasionally resend the letters out.
And the importance of social media, Stephanie. I had a landlord call us out of the blue, not even marketed. He said he Googled estate agents in Cornwall, and we came up on Google on Facebook, and he just looked on our Facebook page. So again, it is important to do that marketing, but do it right. Don't screw up like I did at the start.
Yeah, exactly. So do things that would be attractive to your landlords if that's who you want to attract.
Yeah.
So it has been so lovely to speak to you, Dan. I've really enjoyed our conversation and the way that you do things. What would you say just to people listening who are thinking about getting started, who are maybe thinking, oh, I don't know if rent to rent is for me, like you were at the beginning and like I was. What would you say to them?
I think for me, Stephanie, it's why are you even looking at it? Why are you even thinking about it? Like, what is your reason? Because if your reason isn't big enough or strong enough or cemented in your head, you're not going to make it work. Don't waste your time. So unless that reason why is strong enough, then don't bother, because you're not going to put your heart and soul into it. Unless you put your heart and soul into it, you're not going to get anywhere. So for me, it's a case of find and cement that why. Once you've cemented that why, you've got to reverse engineer it. So I cemented my why. Right, what do I need to do to get to my why? Well, I need to get myself out of the day job. Right, how do I get myself out of the day job? Right, work backwards. I need X amount of money a month. Right, how do I get X amount of money a month? Right, what are my options? I haven't got a lot of cash. I need a cash flow and strategy. Sourcing, is that for you? Wasn't for me. I was in a full-time job, didn't have a lot of time. So rent to rent was my next option because I didn't want to have to buy properties. So that was how I chose that route. Then I had it's that shiny penny syndrome, Stephanie. Like, we've all been there, I'm sure. Like, I was starting rent to rent. Oh, but look at that commercial conversion. Oh, look at this buy to let. I had to have the blinkers on. I just turned the right move alerts off. Just blinkers on. My head did not come up until I had that figure to get Jodie out of her day job. When Jodie got out of her day job, right, step 1 done. Next, me, and it's just gone home till you get it done. Unless you want it bad enough, you're not going to put the time, the money, the effort in, and the hours.
Yeah, no, that is phenomenal, Dan. You've got such an inspiring story and a great way of putting it over. And I love what you guys are doing. And that's why I wanted to invite you to be on the show. So I just want to thank you, Dan, for joining us today, for sharing everything that you do. I'm so excited for what you've got coming up with Cornwall Living, and I will definitely be keeping an eye out. It sounds phenomenal. And thank you also for watching and for listening. It's been great to have you with us today. And remember, we are on Clubhouse every Thursday at midday. We've got a rent to rent room, and you can see all the details at renttoRentSuccess.com/clubhouse if you want to join us on the Clubhouse hangout. So until next week, have a great rest of the week. And remember, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer. See you soon. Bye for now. Bye.